Okay, everyone. The wind is blowing. The seaside is being its usual seaside self. And I've decided that I'm going to try and record chapters 25 through 28 before Christmas. So, this is chapter 25, found footage. In the last chapter, things happened. I could recap them, but at the end of the previous chapter, I already, this is kind of a continuation to the previous chapter. So, I don't want to make myself sound like a broken record, so I'll say this. Riley got into a huge fight with Hero and the rest of Big Hero 6, except for Baymax and O. And she decided to quit, with Tip going alongside her. So, without further ado, let's read. Riley walked down the sidewalk with her head bowed, her bangs hiding her tear-filled eyes as she wrapped her arms tightly around her chest. "Where are we going?" Joy questioned. "I don't know," Samus replied. "Away seems like a good direction." "Riley!" She suddenly heard Tip's voice shout from behind her. "Hey, Riley, wait up!" Turning around, Riley saw Tip jogging down the sidewalk towards her. "Tip?" Riley questioned, turning to face her friend while wiping tears from her eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to catch up with you, obviously." Tip huffed and puffed as she came to a stop next to Riley, before bending over and resting her hands on her knees as she fought to catch her breath. "But why did you leave?" Riley clarified in confusion. "Because why would I hang out around without you?" Tip questioned as she straightened up and looked Riley in the eye. "The only reason I've been hanging around for all of this craziness is because of you." There was a pause as Riley stared at Tip for a moment before she stepped forward and pulled her into a hug, which the other girl quickly reciprocated. Riley and Tip, best friends for life. "Thanks, Tip," Riley said as she stepped back and released the girl. "Don't worry about it," Tip replied with a shrug. "What are friends for?" Riley smiled briefly before sighing sadly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "So, that happened," Riley stated awkwardly. "It sure did," Tip agreed with a chuckle. "What do we do now?" Riley questioned. "Follow through on what we're already doing, I guess," Tip answered with a shrug. "Head home, lay low, let the others handle all of this superhero craziness." "I guess," Riley agreed with a sigh. "I'm starting to feel, worried. I'm wondering if we're making the right decision, not helping." "Well, they didn't exactly give you much of a choice," Tip pointed out. "I know," Riley replied with a nod before shrugging. "I just feel like there was something we could have done." "Well, there's nothing we can do about it now, so there's not really any sense in worrying about it," Tip suggested before she glanced up, smirking as she did. "Hey, are you hungry?" "What?" Riley questioned in confusion. "Why?" Tip responded by nodding in the direction she had been looking in, prompting Riley to follow her gaze. Across the street was a familiar restaurant, the neon-lit sign of Takahito Sushi Wonderland, piercing the oncoming darkness. "You like this place, right?" Tip questioned with a knowing smile as Riley looked back at her. "My treat." Riley chuckled and a bright smile spread across her face. "Sounds good," she agreed with a nod. That's so awesome. That's so nice. I bet we're gonna see Takahito again, but alas. Meanwhile, twilight had fallen across the city of San Francisco, the lights from the buildings and street lamps below casting long shadows into the sky above, perfectly cloaking Baymax as he rocketed through the space above the skyscrapers. Hero crouched in his position on Baymax's back, his magnetic gloves and shoes holding him in place. Honey and Gogo sat on either side of Hiro, clutching Baymax's wings for support while O huddled in front of the boy. Baymax's arms were occupied with holding Fred and Wasabi, who were, respectively, exhilarated and terrified. "Killer view," Gogo commented over the whipping winds as she glanced down at the city beneath them, which gave way to the expansive waters of the bay. "Yeah, if I wasn't terrified of heights, I'd probably love this," Wasabi commented as he desperately clung to Baymax's arm, doing his best not to look down. "But I'm terrified of heights, so I don't love this." As they flew, Honey glanced over at Hiro with a worried expression on her face, noting the angry one on his. "Are you okay, Hiro?" Honey questioned, causing the boy to snap his head in her direction. "I'm fine," he replied curtly. "Look, with everything that just happened, I know," Honey began to say. "You don't know anything!" Hiro snapped, cutting Honey off and causing Gogo to glance over at them, while O glanced nervously between the two. "Whatever you were about to say, just save it. We've got more important things to worry about." Like I said before, Hiro... Jerk! "Hiro," Honey tried to say again. "Do you want to get Tadashi's killer or not?" Hiro interrupted again. Honey blinked in surprise for a moment before her expression changed, becoming something cold and hard as she glared back at Hiro. "You know I do," Honey whispered harshly, the change in her demeanor causing Gogo to raise her eyebrows in surprise. "Then focus on that," Hiro replied as he turned his attention towards the rapidly approaching island. "Nothing else matters." "Hiro, how inconsiderate are you being right now? Honey was Satosh's girlfriend, for God's sake!" "Hey, first you push Riley away, then you said those things to her, and then... Well, I know this is important to you, but this is just as important to her. So don't go saying that she doesn't know anything when she does. She understands the pain. You're the one who doesn't understand because you keep pushing her away. You push Riley away. You keep pushing everyone else away. Arrgh! Okay, I'm really sorry about that, guys. Let's just go ahead and keep going." As they approached Akuma Island, Baymax began circling it from above. Down below, the group could see the island's infamous prison, a complex of concrete, blocky buildings surrounded by high fences topped with razor wire and overlooked by tall, menacing towers. As they continued to circle the island, Hiro spotted another structure tucked away in a small cove on the far side of the island. "There, Baymax," Hiro said as he pointed the structure out to the others. "Bring us down." Turning towards the structure, Baymax began his descent towards it. As they approached, the group was able to get a better look at the structure that lay before them. All they could see of the structure was what appeared to be the surface, which resembled a large concrete bunker built into the island's rocky cliff face. The bunker was clearly of military make, with a large metal door on the front and various antennae sprouting from the top. The bunker sat on a small area of land that had been paved over with concrete and encircled with a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Just beyond the fence was a small dock that could be accessed through a gated checkpoint. A few barrels and crates lay scattered about the enclosed area, and signs attached to the fence announcing the area was closed off due to a quarantine. Beyond that, there were no signs of human occupation. "Awesome!" Fred exclaimed as Baymax set him and Wasabi down before leaning over to allow the others to dismount from his back. "Our first landing together as a team!" "Well, half a team." Guys," Wasabi spoke up as he walked over to the fence and examined one of the signs. "I don't think we should be here." "No kidding?" Gogo questioned sarcastically, "and I thought the giant fence topped with razor wire seemed so inviting." "Seriously though," Wasabi replied, his tone nervous as he indicated towards the sign he had been reading. "Do you people even know what quarantine means?" "Is it being good?" O questioned hopefully. "Quarantine," Baymax defined, holding up a hand with one finger extended like a professor giving a lecture. Enforced isolation to prevent contamination that could lead to disease, or in some cases, death. That is not sounding to be very good, O stated with a gulp, his skin turning a pale shade of yellow. Oh look, there's a skull face on this one, Wasabi said, pointing to another sign. A skull face! Oh, would you quit whining, Wasabi? Gogo snapped as she turned and glared at him. Yokai could have put those signs up himself for all we know. And even if he didn't, whatever is going on here doesn't seem to be bothering him any, Hiro added. Wasabi crossed his arms and sighed in reply, but didn't argue. Come on, Hiro stated as he waved everyone towards the door. Let's see if we can find a way inside. Walking up to the bunker, the group paused outside the large metal door. Should we knock? Fred suggested with a shrug. In a manner of speaking, Hiro replied before looking over at Wasabi. Right, Wasabi replied as he nodded his head in understanding and flipped one of his blades on. Stepping up to the door, Wasabi pulled his arm back and plunged it into the door, the plasma blade cutting into the heavy steel door like it was paper. Letting out a grunt, Wasabi began cutting a circle in the door, pausing once and doubling back to make sure that he could finish the cut properly. When he was finished, Wasabi had cut a circle in the door slightly taller than he was and just as wide. Lemonade. There was a pause as Wasabi stepped away, the circle practically glowing from the now molten metal that rimmed it. Then, the metal door let out a groan and the circle topped backwards into the bunker, landing with an echoing thud. Well, Wasabi said as he flicked the blade back off. Glad to know those work. Come on, Hiro prompted as he crawled into the hole, prompting the others to squeeze in after him. All except O, that was. O spoke up, bringing the others' attention to him as he looked away from them while wringing his hands together nervously. Perhaps I should be staying here, to be keeping watch. Watch for what? Honey questioned in confusion. The enemy, of course, O answered with a nervous laugh. And what exactly are you going to do if you spot the enemy? Gogo questioned with a dubious expression. I am being quite the proficient screamer, O explained with an oddly proud tone. I am being sure you will hear me when the time is coming. I'm sure we will, Gogo replied neutrally. But how about, instead, you do us all a favor and get through the hole, you little snot? Gogo angrily snapped the last bit, startling O and causing him to quickly crawl through the hole, his skin turning yellow again as the young woman glared at him. Sighing and shaking his head, Hiro turned away from the door so that he could get a better look at his surroundings. What lay before them was a long, wide hallway a little over 8 feet in height. The hallway was Spartan in design, with bare, dull gray metal walls and floor, illuminated by dim fluorescent lights built into the ceiling. The hallway stretched for a few yards ahead before turning to the right and disappearing from sight. Oh, good rhyme. Right in sight. Come on, Hiro signaled to the others, and together the 7 of them began to cautiously make their way cautiously down the hallway, looking in every direction they could. 7 intrepid friends, led by Fred sung softly to himself as they continued down the widening hallway. Their leader, Fred's angels. Fred, I swear to God, Wasabi whispered harshly, if you don't shut up, I will laser hand you in the face. Guys, shh! Hiro spoke up before turning his attention towards Baymax. Any sign of him, Baymax? The structure is interfering with my sensors, Baymax informed them as the group walked past a large metal door that was left slightly ajar. Great! Gogo sighed angrily as Honey paused at the door and peeked inside. The robot's broken. No, he isn't broken. He just said that the scanner was going all haywire. Guys? Honey spoke up, causing the others to look back at her. "You might want to see this." As the others walked back to her, Honey grabbed the door and slid it open, revealing the room beyond. It was a large room, with at least a 20-foot-high ceiling, and a length and width twice that in both directions. Stepping inside, the group found they were on a catwalk, with the floor dropping 10 feet below them. One side of the room was dominated mostly by metal wreckage of some sort, steel and wiring jutting off of the floor in every direction, burnt and broken. Rising up out of the wreckage and off to one side was a large circle that had seemingly been hastily constructed out of the surrounding scraps. The circle, which was easily 20 feet in diameter, was lit up by a pair of spotlights, their illumination casting the rest of the room in shadow. "What do you think it is?" Gogo questioned aloud as the group entered the room, looking at the mechanical contraption with a mixture of confusion and awe. "I'm not sure," Hiro admitted before he reached out and pointed at a specific area of the machine. "But look." Looking to where the boy indicated, the group could see that part of the machine bore the bird symbol that Hiro had drawn for them the day before. Guys, Honey spoke up, bringing everyone's attention to her before she indicated to something behind them. Looking up, the group saw that an observation room had been built on the opposite side of the room from the reassembled machine. Angry red light drifting through the windows that made up the walls of the room. Together, the group made their way up the metal staircase that led to the observation room's thick metal door. Gathering in front of it, the group huddled close together as Baymax reached out and pushed the door open, the hinges creaking as it swung inward. The red light cast the room in heavily contrasted shadow, making it hard to make out precise details from where the group was standing. Nevertheless, they could see that just inside the windows ran a bank of computer terminals, with a rolling office chair parked in front of each station. Stepping inside, Hiro glanced around, noting a pair of staircases that led to a raised area in the rear, apparently created to allow those not working on the computers to observe the room beyond. As Hiro looked around, he also discovered the source of the room's illumination. A huge computer monitor, situated in the center of the room, sat facing the windows, displaying the same symbol they had just seen in black on a blood-red background. Confusion written on his features, Hiro walked up to the monitor, stopping in front of the computer terminal attached to it. Hitting a button, the screen changed, sectioning itself off into 9 squares, each labeled with a different video feed. Each of the feeds was dark except the one in the top center, labeled Control Room. The feed displayed a single static image of the room they were standing in, though now fully lit and filled with people. Men and women dressed in lab coats sat at the computer terminals while others dressed in business wear and army uniforms stood behind them. The image prominently displayed Alistair Cray leaning over one of the computer terminals, a troubled look on his face. Behind him stood an older man in an army uniform festooned with medals with gray hair and chiseled features. "Cray," Hiro muttered before he hit another button on the terminal. Immediately, the rewind symbol appeared at the center of the screen as the feed began to rewind. As it did, the 8 video feeds sprung to life, images flashing across the screen as they reversed rapidly as well. After a moment, Hiro hit another button and the feed began to play. "What's all this about? Interesting." The other video feeds now showed multiple angles of the room behind them, now brightly lit and containing 2 of the ring devices, each of them pristine and with glowing blue lights circling the center. "That's right," Cray's voice said from over the speakers attached to the terminal as he walked into view on the central feed alongside the army officer and his entourage. "We were asked to do the impossible. So, that's what we did." Sorry, that was a little barking. Using what we've learned from the alien technology, we've reinvented the very concept of transportation. Cray continued as he led the group to one of the rings, appearing on a feed marked Portal Track 01. Friends, I present Project Silent Sparrow. As Cray spoke, the two rings suddenly sprung to life, letting out low-pitched hums as fields of swirling blue and purple energy suddenly formed in each of the circles. General, may I? Cray requested as he gestured to the officer's hat. Hesitantly, the general handed the hat to Cray, who promptly turned around and flung it into the energy field. The hat disappeared instantly, before it suddenly came flying out of the field in the other ring, where it was caught by a waiting scientist, who waved it in the air excitedly as the others looked over at him. Whoa! Fred exclaimed as the others watched the video with wide-eyed shock. Magic hat! No! Magic portals! Okay. Project Silent Sparrow was definitely the project that had everyone thinking with portals. Oh, come on! I had to do that! As they continued watching, the scientists turned towards the energy field and threw the hat in, causing it to reappear in front of Cray, who easily snagged it out of the air. Teleportation, Cray stated as he handed the hat back to the stunned general. The transportation of matter instantly through space. Not science fiction anymore, though. What is these days? Cray began walking away from the portal as he spoke, prompting the others to follow him. Now, we didn't spend billions of tax dollars to teleport hats. Cray continued as he and the others entered the control room, where more scientists were hard at work at their terminals. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here to witness history. Ready to go for a ride, Abigail? Cray questioned after he had turned to one of the terminals and pushed a button. At the same time, a woman appeared on a feed marked PodCam, which seemed to be focused on the cockpit of some sort of vehicle. Though Hero noted that despite all the blinking lights and flashing displays, there didn't appear to be a control mechanism of any kind. The woman herself appeared to be in her late 20s with brown hair and brown eyes, dressed in what appeared to be an advanced spacesuit colored a pristine white. Well, we've invited all these people, the woman, Abigail, replied as she flipped a switch above her head, prompting the canopy she had crawled through to close. Might as well give them a show. T-minus 30 seconds to launch. An automated voice announced before it began counting down as the other cameras revealed the vehicle Abigail had entered, a capsule of some kind, slide into place in front of one of the rings. Capsule's in position! One of the scientists stated as O let out a small gasp of fear. Turning towards the booth, Hero saw that he had turned a bright shade of yellow and was covering his mouth in shock. Sir? The scientist sitting in front of Cray spoke up as he looked over his shoulder at the man, bringing Hero's attention back to the video feeds. We picked up a slight irregularity in the magnetic containment field. Oh. Cray mused as he leaned down to get a better look at the scientist's screen, before glancing back at the general. Mr. Cray, is there a problem? The general questioned, his voice so rough that the only thing Hero could compare it to was two rocks grinding against one another. No problem, General Monger. Cray answered with a reassuring smile before giving the scientist a pointed look. It's well within the parameters. Let's move forward. General Monger is in... The General Monger from Monsters vs. Aliens? Oh my god, Monsters vs. Aliens is canon. If he's in it, then it's canon. I'm calling it now. Monsters vs. Aliens better be in the sequel. I'm just saying. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Monsters vs. Aliens is my favorite DreamWorks movie of all time, and it's gonna be 10 years since it came out! By that time, the countdown had almost reached 0. Cabin pressure is go, one of the scientists announced. All systems green. Pod engaged. The automated voice stated as it finished the countdown. I do not want to be viewing this, O whispered as he covered his eyes with his hands. On the screen, the pod was shot forward via the belt system it was attached to, rocketing forward until it disappeared into the portal, the shimmering purple-blue energy rippling like water as it passed through, the video feed showing the cockpit going dark as it did so. There was a pause as everyone looked expectantly at the other portal, but after a few agonizing moments, nothing happened. What's going on, Cray? General Munger questioned as he glanced between Cray and the second portal as the first one abruptly flickered and died. Where's the pod? I don't... Cray tried to answer, his expression a mixture between confusion and panic. I'm not... Sir! One of the scientists suddenly called out. We're picking up audio and visual! Get it on the screens and speakers! Cray ordered as the video feed showing the pod cockpit suddenly sprung back to life, though the feed was interrupted every few seconds by a burst of static. The feed showed Abigail looking around in dazed confusion, the only illumination provided by the pod's displays. Hello? Abigail questioned with a cough, her voice laced with pain and dazed confusion, an undercurrent of buzzing static running in the background. Does anyone read me? We read you, Abigail! Cray answered quickly as the scientists began rapidly inputting commands into their terminals. What happened? Abigail asked as she began glancing around. Where am I? We're not sure yet, Cray replied. Can you tell me what happened on your end? I'm not sure, Abigail admitted as she seemed to start recovering her wits. I went through the portal and the pod crashed. Crashed? Munger questioned in confusion. Abigail, are you saying the pod has landed on something solid? Cray inquired. Yeah, Abigail confirmed as she looked around some more. It seems like I'm in some sort of cavern or... Abigail's voice abruptly broke off as she let out a shocked gasp. Abigail! Cray asked quickly, his tone rising with panic. What is it? What's wrong? It's not a cavern, Abigail answered as she looked around in surprise. It's a chamber. A room. A room? Cray questioned in confusion. You mean you're somewhere man-made? It's artificial if that's what you're asking, Abigail replied. Because wherever I am, it's definitely not man-made. Mother of God, Munger whispered in shock as the blood drained out of Cray's face. Wait, Abigail said as she did her best to turn around in her seat and look at what was behind the pod. I can see the portal! Yes, we still have one of the portals open on our end, Cray replied. Now just sit tight, Abigail, and we'll... Abigail, what are you doing? It's only a dozen or so yards away, Abigail explained as she unfastened her harness and began pushing buttons around the cockpit. I should be able to get to it without any trouble. No, we have no idea what the atmosphere around you is like, Cray argued. The pod might be the only thing keeping you alive right now. To say nothing about how we don't know if it's safe for an unprotected person to travel through the portal yet. Look, Cray, Abigail snapped as she looked directly into the... There's no way we're getting this pod back through the portal. We don't even know how long we have until you can't keep the portal open anymore. And I'll be damned if you're going to risk someone else's life by sending them in after. Abigail abruptly cut herself off as she looked at something on the camera and let out a surprised yelp. "Abigail!" Craig questioned, his voice edged with fear again. "What's wrong?" There's a... Abigail started to say before she let out another startled gasp as she glanced in multiple directions, pushing herself back into her seat as far as she could. "There's more of them." "More?" Craig questioned in confusion. "More of..." Craig trailed off as his face turned ashen. His eyes focused on the screen in front of him. On the feed for the cockpit camera, just behind Abigail, a figure could be seen pressing its face against the canopy. Craig trailed off and gulped before continuing. "Is that an alien?" Munger all but growled, his posture becoming rigid. "That's not any alien," Fred whispered in shock as all of them recognized the broad, square head, noseless face, and curled up tentacles at the place of ears. "That's a boob," Hero finished, his eyes wide as he turned them toward O, only to find that the alien had covered his ears with his hands while squeezing his eyes shut. "What are these things?" Abigail demanded, fear filtering into her voice as she tried to look in every direction at once. Suddenly, a loud, rumbling roar came from over the loudspeaker, causing Abigail to freeze in place as the booth scattered from sight. "What was that?" Abigail questioned, her voice a frightened whisper as the rhythmic thumping began to grow louder and louder. "Something's coming." None of this happened in the original Big Hero 6, just so you know. "Abigail, hold..." Cray began to say, but was cut off as a loud alarm suddenly went off. "What is that?" Monger demanded. "Sir, we're losing containment on the other portal," one of the scientists reported. Looking at the video feed showing the portal, the group could see that the machine was starting to shake and glow with heat as the energy field within it began to flicker. "Abigail!" Cray shouted. "If you're going to move, do it now! The portal is collapsing!" Her eyes widening, Abigail quickly began fiddling with the controls inside the cockpit. All the while, the thumping sound grew louder and louder. As Abigail flicked a switch from one of the panels, causing the pod to let out a hissing noise before the canopy opened back up. As Abigail began to crawl out of the pod, another thunderous roar, much closer than the first, came from somewhere just out of the camera's view. In response, Abigail let out a scream of terror and clambered out of the pod, disappearing from sight. As she did, another roar came from off-screen before something slammed into the pod, jostling it and knocking it onto his side. As the pod fell, the camera came loose and began to hang slightly askew. The new angle allowed the camera to look out of the cockpit across what looked like a large, dark chamber with a metal floor, partially illuminated by the glowing blue portal at the far end. Here and there, Hero could make out pillars rising up out of the floor, each with some form of object resting on top of it. The feed also showed Abigail racing across the room, glancing behind her fearfully as something large moved through the shadows after her. She ran. A pair of booths suddenly scuttled in front of her. As she had been looking over her shoulder, Abigail did not see the aliens and slammed into them. As Abigail lost her footing, she fell to the floor and rolled into one of the pillars, knocking it over and sending the item sitting on top of it, an ovoid stone, skipping across the metal floor. The aliens froze in place as they watched the stone bounce, before it took a hop right through the portal. Glancing at a different feed, Hero could see the object come falling out of the portal and land on the floor in front of the portal. At the same time, the machine containing it glowed red hot. The monster in the shadows let out another roar before pointing at the flickering portal and shouting something a guttural tongue that Hiro had never heard before. Immediately, the two both hopped to their feet and raced towards the portal, Abigail following after them. She was stopped, though, as a shadowed creature reached out with a long and sinuous arm, which wrapped around Abigail's ankle and yanked her from her feet. Abigail let out a wail of fear before she and the creature disappeared from view. There was a moment of stunned, terrified silence in the control room as everyone stared at the now silent video feed. Mother of God, Mongo whispered in horror. Quick! Craig called out. Somebody! Sir! One of the scientists interrupted him. The portal is... Before the scientist could finish, the ring holding open the portal suddenly exploded into a fireball that sent debris flying in all directions, including tearing large chunks out of the other ring. As the shockwave from the blast passed, everyone slowly turned to look at the rings, only to find nothing but debris as the smoke cleared. Glancing down at the terminal, Cray saw that the feed from the cockpit camera had died. Abigail? Cray called out quietly. Abigail, do you... He stopped as Munger laid a hand on his shoulder. She's gone, Cray. Munger stated firmly. Cray's face fell at the words as Munger's expression turned hard, and he swept his gaze around the control room. I want a quarantine on this place, Munger ordered. Nobody comes in or out. There was a stunned silence as everyone stared at him. I mean now! Munger barked sharply, causing everyone to spring into action. Now, damn it, now! At that point, Hiro paused the video and turned to look at the others with wide eyes. What did we just watch? Hiro questioned, turning his attention towards O. Oh, what was that? Is that how you got here? I just wanted to escape. O replied, still keeping his eyes tightly closed while shaking his head. I just wanted to be free. Free? Wasabi questioned. Free from what? Oh, what are you talking about? What are you all doing here? A voice from behind them suddenly asked, prompting the group to spin around, weapons at the ready. Only to find Alistair Cray standing in the doorway behind them. The man did not look as well put together as he usually did. With his normally coiffed hair mussed, and his expensive clothes askew and wrinkled. Cray? Hiro questioned in confusion before his eyes arrowed. So it was you? No, it freaking wasn't, Hiro! Oh my goodness. Let's just read the end of this. What? Cray questioned in confusion, growing more agitated as he spoke. What are you talking about? You can't be here! Don't bother trying to play dumb! Hiro retorted angrily as he marched up to Cray and pointed an accusatory finger at the man. We know... Cray interrupted him by reaching down and grabbing Hiro by the shoulders, while bringing his face close to the boy's, his eyes wide with fear. You have to get out of here! Cray whispered harshly, his eyes darting in every direction. You don't understand. They could come back at... Cray abruptly froze and fell silent as his eyes fell on O. What is that thing doing here? Cray questioned before his voice became hot. You're working with them, aren't you? That's how he was able to get your microbots. What are you talking about? Hiro questioned, suddenly confused. You don't know? Cray asked, equally bewildered as his eyes darted between O and Hiro. You don't know about the other one? Other one? Gogo referred in question in confusion. What other one? I am thinking I can be explaining this. A new voice said from beyond the group. Spinning around, the group found another booth, This one dressed in an orange version of O's outfit, standing a short distance away from them. He looked similar to O, though the tentacles on the side of his head reached upwards like horns, and small tentacles grew above his upper lip, making it seem as though he had a mustache. What caught everyone's attention, though, was the shotgun he had leveled at them. I believe he's referring to me. The boo finished with a wicked grin as he cocked the gun with an ominous clack. Oh my god! Well, this is getting really interesting at the moment, isn't it? Well, I'll just see you in the next podcast. I'm not going to leave this on a cliffhanger. Just join me next Sunday, is all. Don't worry, I'm sure everyone will make it out fine. Okay, bye. I keep moving on with that. See you later. Bye, bye, bye.